New York has been keeping secrets longer than the republic that contains it. Some places are off limits because what happens inside them cannot be disclosed. Some because the ground is contaminated, unstable, or carrying the residue of decisions made by people long dead. Some because ownership in New York is everywhere is its own answer to the question of access. These are 17 forbidden places in New York you're not allowed to visit. Place number 1. Fresh Kills, the sections that are not a park. Staten Island, Richmond County. Fresh Kills. Landfill received New York City's solid waste from 1948 until 2001, accumulating approximately 150 million tons of refuse across 2,200 acres of tidal wetland on Staten Island's western shore. It was closed in March 2001. It was reopened in September 2001 to receive debris from the World Trade Center site. The material brought from Ground Zero included the remains of people who could not be recovered or identified at the site itself. The city is converting Fresh Kills into Fresh Kills Park, eventually larger than Central Park. Sections have opened incrementally. Large portions remain closed as methane capture systems, leachate collection infrastructure, and landfill cap systems are maintained while the underlying waste mass continues its decades-long process of settling and decomposition. The largest mound rises 225 feet above sea level, one of the highest points on the eastern seaboard, south of Maine. Most people do not know that recovery and identification of human remains from the World Trade Center material at Fresh Kills continued for years after the immediate operations ended, with the medical examiner's office conducting ongoing DNA analysis of fragmented material from the landfill. Most people also do not know that beneath the engineered caps and new topsoil lies a compressed record of what New York discarded across 53 years. A stratigraphy of consumption that archaeologists have described as one of the most significant material culture deposits in human history. Place number 2, Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station, Niagara County. Adjacent to the city of Niagara Falls, a short distance from the Canadian border and one of the most visited natural attractions in the Western Hemisphere, there's a military installation that most tourists driving to the falls have passed without registering. Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station occupies 2,600 acres and is home to the 914th Air Refueling Wing, say operating KC-135, tanker aircraft that refuel military planes over the northeastern United States and the North Atlantic. The installation shares runway infrastructure with the civilian Niagara Falls International Airport, with commercial and military aircraft operating from the same pavement, separated by administrative designation and fencing, but not by geography. The military portion contains maintenance facilities, fuel storage, and administrative infrastructure that are federal property closed to the public. Most people do not know that Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station was designated as a dispersal base for nuclear-armed B-47 bombers during the 1950s, meaning nuclear-armed aircraft would have launched from the same location where tourists were departing for vacation flights. Most people also do not know that the station's proximity to the Canadian border made it a significant node in the NORAD early warning network during the Cold War. The civilian airport is publicly accessible. The military installation adjacent to it is not, and the fence between them is not symbolic. Place number 3, Rikers Island, Bronx County. Rikers Island is a 413-acre island in the East River between Queens and the Bronx, accessible by a single bridge from Queens that is not open to the general public. It is the main jail complex of New York City, housing approximately 5,500 people on any given day across 10 separate facilities. You do not visit Rikers Island unless you are detained there, employed there, providing legal services to someone detained there, or an approved family visitor with a scheduled appointment. The island's history as a detention facility begins in 1932. Before that, it was farmland, owned by the Riker family from the 17th century until the city purchased it in 1884. The island has been expanded through landfill operations from its original 87 acres to its current size, using ash from city incineration operations and refuse from Fresh Kills. Most people do not know that the New York City Council voted in 2019 to close Rikers Island and replace it with borough-based jails by 2027, a timeline that has slipped. Most people also do not know that the island's soil contains contamination from more than 80 years of industrial and incarceration operations requiring environmental remediation before any alternative use is feasible. The bridge to Rikers Island is real. The process for crossing it is not designed to be navigated by the uninvited. Place number 4. Camp Hero State Park, the Underground, Suffolk County. At the eastern tip of Long Island on a bluff above the Atlantic at Montauk Point, Camp Hero State Park opened in 2002 after the Air Force transferred the property to New York State. The hiking trails and ocean views are accessible. The abandoned buildings and the underground facilities beneath the installation are not. Camp Hero was established in 1942 as a coastal artillery fortification. It transitioned to radar operations after World War II as part of the Air Defense Command Network, monitoring northeastern airspace for Soviet aircraft. The AN/FPS-35 radar antenna, still standing at the site, was one of the most powerful long-range radar systems in the Air Force inventory during its operational period. The installation was deactivated in 1981. The underground facilities were sealed when the Air Force departed. Most people do not know that Camp Hero became the subject of persistent claims that classified experiments involving time travel and psychological warfare were conducted in the underground facilities after deactivation. These claims have no credible evidentiary support. Most people also do not know that the legitimate classified history of the installation, the radar capabilities, and the full extent of the underground infrastructure remains partially restricted in federal record. The surface of the park is open. The underground is sealed. Place number 5. The Fort Drum Restricted Training Areas, Jefferson County. Near Watertown in the North Country, Fort Drum covers 107,265 acres on the eastern edge of the Tug Hill Plateau, one of the snowiest regions in the eastern United States. It is home to the 10th Mountain Division, the most deployed division in the United States Army since the end of the Cold War, with deployments to Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The training ranges at Fort Drum include live-fire artillery areas, air assault training grounds, and winter warfare facilities. The Tug Hill Plateau receives more than 200 inches of snow per year on average, making it a natural environment for training soldiers in cold weather operations. The ranges are active. The terrain is unforgiving. Most people do not know that the expansion of the installation during World War II required the displacement of several small farming communities in Jefferson County, whose residents were given limited time and limited compensation to leave. Most people also do not know that beneath the training ranges, the cellar holes and foundations of those demolished homes remain in the ground. The base is federal military property. Access requires authorization from Installation Command. The warning signs on the range perimeters describe actual conditions. Place number 6, North Brother Island, Bronx County. In the East River between the Bronx and Rikers Island, within sight of LaGuardia Airport's approach paths, there's a 13-acre island that no authorized civilian has visited in decades. North Brother Island is owned by New York City and managed as a bird sanctuary. The ferry service stopped running more than 60 years ago. The buildings on it are deteriorating and will continue to do so. The island's most significant association is with Mary Mallon, known as Typhoid Mary, a symptomatic carrier of Salmonella typhi, who was forcibly quarantined there by city health authorities in 1907, released in 1910, recaptured in 1915 after returning to work as a cook under a false name, and died on the island in 1938. Most people do not know that North Brother Island was the site where survivors of the General Slocum disaster were brought on June 15, 1904, when a steamship carrying a church congregation caught fire in the East River and killed more than 1,000 people, the deadliest disaster in New York City history before September 11th. Most people also do not know that the island's shoreline was the last ground many of those victims touched. Access is prohibited. The Parks Department conducts periodic research visits. Unauthorized approach by boat is illegal and enforced by the harbor. Place number 7, Willowbrook State School Site, Staten Island, Richmond County. The grounds of the former Willowbrook State School are now occupied by the College of Staten Island. The buildings are largely gone. What remains is the physical legacy of what the state of New York did on that land for 3 decades. Willowbrook opened in 1947 for children with intellectual disabilities, designed for 4,000 residents. By the 1960s, it housed more than 6,000. In 1972, journalist Geraldo Rivera obtained access and broadcast footage, showing residents in conditions he described as worse than those in which we would keep animals. Senator Robert Kennedy had visited in 1965 and called it a snake pit. 7 years later, nothing had meaningfully improved. Most people do not know that Willowbrook was the site of deliberate hepatitis experiments conducted between 1956 and 1970, in which newly admitted children were intentionally infected with hepatitis virus to study the disease's progression. But most people also do not know that admission to the institution was in some cases contingent on enrollment in the research program. The college campus is publicly accessible. Several original Willowbrook buildings remain standing in deteriorated condition in unused portions of the campus. They are posted and closed. Place number 8, Governor's Island Cold War Infrastructure, New York County. Governor's Island sits 800 yards off the southern tip of Manhattan. It served as a United States Army post from 1755 and a Coast Guard installation until 2003. The historic fortifications and lawns are seasonally accessible. The underground infrastructure is not. During the Cold War, the island was headquarters of the 1st United States Army and a significant node in the Northeastern Military Communications Network. The utility tunnels, communications infrastructure, and Cold War additions to the fortifications are not part of the public experience and have not been comprehensively documented in available records. Most people do not know that Governor's Island was a fully self-contained military community for most of the 20th century, with its own schools, bowling alleys, golf course, and residential neighborhoods. Most people also do not know that the Coast Guard's departure left contamination requiring a multi-year cleanup before public use could begin. The seasonal public areas are accessible by ferry. The restricted structures remain closed regardless of the season. Place number 9, Floyd Bennett Field Restricted Areas, Brooklyn, Kings County. The New York City's first municipal airport opened in 1931 on filled marshland in Jamaica Bay. Wiley Post left from here on the first solo circumnavigation of the globe in 1933. Howard Hughes set a transcontinental speed record here in 1937. It closed to commercial operations in 1971 and is now part of Gateway National Recreation Area. Most of it is open. Parts are not. The Coast Guard Air Station, New York, operates from the northwestern corner on restricted federal property. Several historic hangars are closed because their structural condition does not permit safe entry. Roof systems have failed, floors are compromised, and decades of aviation contamination make them genuinely dangerous. Most people do not know that Floyd Bennett Field contains one of the largest remaining urban grassland habitats in New York City, maintained through controlled burns. Most people also do not know that the field staged nuclear weapons transport during the Cold War, declassified decades after it stopped. The public portions are open. The Coast Guard installation and the compromised hangars are not. Place number 10, Camp Smith Training Site, Westchester County. Just south of Peekskill on 1,657 acres of steep Hudson River terrain, Camp Smith is the only active military installation in New York State not operated by the federal government. It has been a New York Army National Guard training site since 1882, one of the oldest in the country. The site contains small arms ranges and land navigation courses on terrain that drops sharply toward the river. Most people driving Route 9 along the valley pass the perimeter without recognizing it. Most people do not know that Camp Smith served as a planning headquarters for senior United Nations military officers in the late 1940s, when the UN was temporarily located at Lake Success on Long Island. Most people also do not know that the undeveloped hillsides inside the perimeter have become regular black bear habitat. The installation is state military property. Access requires National Guard authorization. The ranges are active and the perimeter signs mean what they say. Place number 11, Indian Point Energy Center, Westchester County. On the east bank of the Hudson River, 35 miles north of Midtown Manhattan, Indian Point operated 3 reactors beginning in 1962. Both remaining units closed in 2020 and 2021. The plant is in decommissioning. The spent nuclear fuel is not going anywhere. Approximately 3.6 million pounds of spent fuel rods sit in dry cask containers on the riverbank at Buchanan. Mind, there is no permanent national repository for high-level nuclear waste in the United States. The fuel is there because there is nowhere else for it to go. Most people do not know that Indian Point sits within the seismic zone of the Ramapo fault system, and that the adequacy of its original seismic design was never fully resolved before closure. Most people also do not know that decommissioning a plant of this size, this close to a major metropolitan population, has never been attempted in the United States. Place number 12, Federal Continuity Facilities, multiple counties. The primary continuity of government facility is in Virginia. What most people do not know is that the federal continuity infrastructure includes hardened facilities in the New York metropolitan area whose specific locations remain classified. New York was a primary nuclear target throughout the Cold War. Facilities capable of supporting government operations if Washington was destroyed were a planning requirement, not an option. Cold War civil defense infrastructure beneath New York included hardened command centers, communications relay stations, and emergency operations facilities distributed across the region. Some are decommissioned. Some continue operating in capacities not publicly described. Most people do not know that New York City built a dedicated emergency command center beneath the Brooklyn Bridge during the early Cold War, declassified decades after construction. Most people also do not know that Homeland Security continuity documents describe the New York area as one of the primary federal operations nodes outside Washington. Place number 13, the Seneca Army Depot. Seneca County. Between Seneca Lake and Cayuga Lake, on 10,587 acres of farmland seized in 1941, there is a former military installation whose underground infrastructure outlasted the weapons it stored. At its peak, the Seneca Army Depot held an estimated 10,000 nuclear warheads, more than any other storage facility in the United States. The depot closed in 2000. The concrete bunkers still stand across the former acreage, gradually being reclaimed by forest. The underground weapons storage infrastructure has not been fully assessed for remediation. Most people do not know that the depot developed one of the largest concentrations of white deer in the world, a genetic variant that emerged within the fenced installation over decades of isolation from outside deer populations. And most people also do not know that portions of the property remain fenced and posted as redevelopment continues. Place number 14, Brookhaven National Laboratory, Suffolk County. On 5,300 acres of pine barrens in Upton, there's a federal laboratory that has produced 7 Nobel Prize-winning discoveries and that most Long Island residents could not locate on a map. Brookhaven is operated by Stony Brook University and Battelle Memorial Institute under contract to the Department of Energy. It operates the relativistic heavy ion collider, a particle accelerator 2 miles in circumference buried beneath the campus, recreating conditions from microseconds after the Big Bang. It operates the National Synchrotron Light Source 2, generating X-ray beams 10 billion times brighter than the sun. The facility runs around the clock every day of the year. Most people do not know that Brookhaven suffered a significant nuclear incident in 1997 when tritium contamination was discovered leaking into groundwater, and community opposition prevented the reactor from ever restarting. Most people also do not know that the Department of Energy has funded the cleanup continuously since. Place number 15, Hart Island, Bronx County, off the northeastern Bronx, accessible only by Department of Correction ferry from City Island. There's a 101-acre island that has served as New York City's Potter's Field since 1869. Hart Island is the largest publicly funded cemetery in the world. More than 1 million people are buried there. The island has housed a Civil War prison camp, a juvenile reformatory, a psychiatric facility, a Nike missile battery, and a drug rehabilitation center. Through all of it, the burials continued. They are conducted by incarcerated workers from Rikers Island, paid approximately 50 cents per hour. Graves are marked with numbered wooden markers, not names. Most people do not know that Hart Island contains approximately 900 military veterans buried without next of kin. Most people also do not know that families were prohibited from visiting entirely for most of the 20th century, a policy overturned in federal court in 2015. The island transferred to Parks and Recreation in 2021. Access remains restricted and supervised. The ferry is not on a schedule the general public can simply join. Place number 16, United States Military Academy Restricted Zones, West Point, Orange County. The United States Military Academy sits on a granite bluff above the Hudson River, 50 miles north of New York City, on ground George Washington identified as the most strategically important point in North America. The campus is partially accessible. The training areas are not. West Point has been under continuous Army control since 1778. The military reservation encompasses approximately 16,000 acres of Hudson Highlands terrain containing active artillery ranges, demolition areas, and unexploded ordnance for more than 2 centuries of military use. Most people do not know that Trophy Point contains the largest collection of captured cannon in the United States. Most people also do not know that the chains stretched across the Hudson to block British naval movement weighed approximately 65 tons and was replaced twice when winter ice broke it. Place number 17, Plum Island Animal Disease Center, Suffolk County. Off the northeastern tip of Long Island's North Fork, there's an island that most New Yorkers have never set foot on and never will. Plum Island covers 843 acres in Long Island Sound. For more than 50 years, it housed one of the most sensitive biological research facilities in the United States. The ferry that serves it is not for the public. The Plum Island Animal Disease Center was established in 1954 to study foot and mouth disease, a virus that federal law prohibits from being studied on the continental mainland. The island's separation from the mainland was not incidental. It was the point. Most people do not know that Plum Island has been slated for closure and sale since 2008, with a replacement facility built in Manhattan, Kansas. Most people also do not know that the island's soil contamination has been described by federal auditors as one of the most complex environmental cleanup challenges in the federal real estate portfolio.